Today is September 19th, 2024. My name is Melissa Ackerman, and I'll be interviewing Zalman Spivak for the Dallas Jewish Community Israel Mission compilation. How are you today, Zalman?
Very good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you do when you're not leading a mission.
Okay, so I'm Zalman. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. Fourth or fifth generation in Baltimore, my father's side. My mother's from Johannesburg, very Zionist family. And my parents moved to Israel when I was 7 years old. So pretty much I grew up in Israel. Speak English at home. It was an American home, a South African home. But I grew up in an Israeli environment. Grew up, got married, I have 4 children. We live just outside of Yerushalayim, of Jerusalem, in a place called Kfar Dumim, in the Judean desert. And ever since I got out of the army, in 2001, I've been accompanying world Jewry, or mostly North America, but not only, in a variety of capacities, organized Jewish trips. It could be schools, high schools, congregations, federations, while they come to Israel as a tour guide and educator, more in the education passion that I have. To bridge the gap. Israel is my playground, like I like to say. I'm in love with what it looks like. I like to imagine what it looked like in the past, what it looks like today, the tapestry of the diverse society, and really what that means to us as values and how we use that for the future. So that's what I like to do.
And have you ever staffed any of the other Dallas missions that have gone?
I've staffed a couple Dallas missions, and I've also had participants from Dallas on national missions that came out of the United States, national leadership missions. So I have some acquaintance with the Jewish community here in Dallas. Happy it's my first time here.
It's great to have you. Any thoughts about the Dallas delegation? There were it was mostly returning people that had been to Israel many times.
So the Dallas delegation this previous year was a special delegation. It was made up of 2 buses, so it really is a testament and statement to the commitment of the Dallas Jewish community during really tough times in Israel to pick up. The mission was people that are committed, their leadership. They wanted to show leadership by going at these tough times and see what's happening and interact with people that they've had relationships with or build new relationships in Israel. And I come in as that bridge in between. So it really was a fabulous, emotional time. As an Israeli that came out of the army, I was in the reserve duty in between. We value it so much when people that we have a relationship on a day-to-day basis come not only when it's easy, but also when it's challenging.
Was this the first mission you staffed after October 7th, or had you been with other groups and taken them through?
It wasn't the first. I was called up to the reserves on October 7th. I was in a position that wasn't in Gaza, in the West Bank, so I was able fairly to get out to guide. Not every week. There were missions coming in every week, so this was like the third one not in the row, but the third one of the time of the war. And it really was a special, not only the timing that they came, but the quantity, 2 buses, and leadership, and the people that came to Israel.
It was one of the larger trips that came around that time, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay, where were you on October 7th when you got
I
called
was at
up?
home. I live in Kfar Dumim, or Nofei Prat, just outside of Jerusalem. We were celebrating the Chag. We have an adopted son that was a lone soldier. He's already out, and he finished his university, and he traveled. He just got back before, so he was also with us. And we woke up in the morning to the sceneries, and by 12 o'clock I was called up, and so was he. He went out to Gaza, and ever since we've been in a fight, like they say, right? Leaving 4 children behind, that's also, the whole social environment and making sure that they're doing okay.
How old are your kids?
My eldest is 18. He just graduated high school. He's on he's doing a year of service before he goes to the army. With a little bit of anxiety because they've been actually enlisting some of those at the beginning of the year off, so his year might be cut short. I have a 16-year-old, she's a junior in high school, and I have a 6th grader and a 5th grader.
Okay. And you're gone quite a bit of the time taking people around and
I'm on the road with people. My children, my family understand the importance. They have grown into this. They join me a lot. They like to hear what's going on. They have become also this very Israeli family that are connected to World Jury through my work, and we value it a lot. People have been to my house. We're in touch with people, so we see it as part of our mission.
Hmm. One of the things I asked a lot of the people that I spoke with was, were they frightened about coming so quickly after October 7th? And no one was frightened. How is the feeling now, nearly a year later? Is it? I was going to ask you this a little bit later in the interview, but what is it like in Israel right now?
So Israel is a challenging place to be right now. I wouldn't say that there aren't places that are not dangerous. When you come on a trip, we definitely take all measures to make sure that our safety and security is safe. We also have to understand that we don't want visitors to be a burden on the state of Israel, in the sense that we don't want them to be in a place where they will be jeopardized, and now Israel has to take care of them and not our soldiers. But in general, I think Israel is in a complex place where we're trying to live a normal life in an abnormal period. So if you go to Tel Aviv, people are getting up to work. It's part of our strength and our resilience. On the other side, it's a little, there are challenges. You have to be aware with what's happening around you. So I understand that people are frightened. On the other side, it's coming, and it gives a lot of meaning that you're coming at a time that's not regular. There are many places in Israel that are safe. Most of Israel is safe, right? You're not on the front lines. Sometimes you want to see the people on the front lines. If I can, I'll share just an interesting story.
Please.
A soldier that comes out of the Gaza Strip, and this goes to understanding the size of Israel. We're in Texas; it's so vast. But an hour later, he drives home and he's sleeping in his bed and eating his mother's food. And there's two emotions he comes home with, right? He comes home with two emotions. One is, I'm on the front lines and you guys are living a normal life. And that can be like really upsetting. On the other side, he has the emotion of, I'm on the front lines and you're living a normal life. That's what I'm there for. It's a meaning of purpose. And when he sees people from the United States or from Dallas that come and live that normal life, it gives him even more meaning. He's grateful that you're continued to coming there, even just for tourism, even just for being there. It gives meaning and purpose for being on the battlefield. It's very close, right? The proximity is very close. So that we have a normal life and a safe life not far from the battlefield is really uplifting, and it's part of the resilience of the Israeli people, in my eyes.
How did you decide which places to go and which experiences to share with the Dallas group?
So it's a team that puts it together. Okay, I'm the educator. There's also an organizer, and the federation has their needs. I think it's a combination, right, of what we think is important for them to see, right, and to take home, and where is important for them to be seen, right. It's also important for the Israelis to see them, right. When a Dallas Federation comes and we go to Zikim, which is a new community that they have adopted, and say, we are so-and-so, my name is so-and-so, I am from Dallas, I'm here to say thank you, or I'm here to give support, that goes a long way. So and on the other side, we want them to take home and validate stories, right, to hear survivors and validate it. So it's a combination between what we think is important for them to see and where we think it's important for them to be seen. And both of them give comfort and strength to each other.
Okay. And so what did you want the missionary, the people that were on the mission to come back and do, other than just to share their story? Were there other things that they were encouraged to bring back with them, and impart to the rest of the community, or just to share what they had experienced?
So I think one of the big objectives is to further the idea of that World Jury and Israeli Jury are in this together, and that we support each other, and to find those places where we can support each one and continue that support. One of the things that was really amazing on these trips, on the Dallas trip, is that you sometimes come and you want to give comfort to the Israelis, and they turn around and say, well, we're following what you guys are going through. and you come to give comfort, and you're giving strength and comfort from that side. So this relationship that we are all one people, in spite of our differences or practices, and that we're hand in hand here to help you, is very strengthening. The validation of the stories in the world, I think Israel is more aware today with social media and the news on their place in the world, and that they have a long arm or family on the other side of the ocean that can really believe them and validate it and take that message is definitely very important. And I think it's this mutual encouragement. People from Dallas, United States, are looking for a place where they can be personally involved and have a personal connection. And sometimes they find it, each one through their specific passion, whether it's the arts or the youth or the kids. So we allow to bridge that gap. And Federation, this is a Federation mission. Federation has long arms in Israel, right? It has the arm of the Jewish Agency and the JDC, the Jaffe, and of their partnership. And it's really an opportunity to see where they are, where their impact is coming. And that really gives you, validation for what you're doing back here and for the dollars that are risen. So I think that the combination of it. I would say another thing that's unique on a trip is that Israel has soundtracks that you can't get when you're in America. The news cycles changes, the melodies and the tunes change, the billboards changed, and you are now more inclined or understanding the personal, emotions of a person on the street in Israel. When you hear from the news from the comfort of your sofa, you're removed from the smells and the sounds and the sweat and even the attire that people are wearing. So I think it's a great opportunity really to immerse yourself in the soundtrack of Israel at the times of war or the times of distress. Or there was a great unity that came after October 7th. So that was also very, to see that and to feel that.
Yeah. Many people discussed their experience at the music festival site. Can you tell a little bit about what they were seeing and witnessing and a part of?
So in a sense, the musical festival site is crime scene, and it's not easy to move into a crime scene. When we visit Poland, we visit memorials of things that happened 70 years ago. It's a place where youngsters were out there. It's almost on the border. You can many times hear the conflict in the background. There are these metal bar sticks all over the field that each one has the portrait of the victims, and many families have taken that portrait and modified it to be their personal place of memorial. So they've added flowers. You have survivors coming and giving testimonies. So it's really a place of deep sorrow, but understanding what happened there and connecting to the devastation, right? The magnitude of the event of October 7th. And it really gives also a human face to the people. As I said, you're close to what they have. So I think it's a very emotional moment to hear stories, but also really just to be present, to be present at the place itself and pay respect, and try to feel or understand what happened there. There's ever since there's been many artistic installations and different, like I would say, even they sprung up. Different people put up different stuff. Nothing that was really organized. A year later, we're now really discussing with ourselves, how do we memorialize within the war? We're still in a war, and we're looking at memorialization. We're still looking at how are we going to commemorate a year when it's still going on. So I think the site of the Nova is a really personal site. The youngsters understanding where it was, putting a face to what happened, and giving people a time. It's really an open area where you can take your own time to contemplate on what you're seeing.
Just about everybody talked about how moving that whole experience was, and that it was hard for them to express without getting very choked up what they had seen and witnessed and been a part of. So it really was very impactful.
I think a visit with a community and on your own gives it the strength, because you're not coming down there. You could get on a plane and go on your own, but with the Dallas Federation, we are giving each person their time to walk around a little bit on their own. We're also collecting as a community to say a prayer, right? To say a memorial prayer, to say a prayer for the soldiers that are in there, to say a prayer for the sick and the wounded, which are many. The amount is many. So it's really an individual experience, but also a collective experience. We have our rabbis that came with us, and we had our leaders that come with us, so we pull it together. So I think that together makes a really impactful visit to the site.
And also going to visit the different kibbutzes where a lot of the horrific things took place. What's happening now? Are they being rebuilt, or?
So there's an internal, each kibbutz on their own. There was a debate with the government and the kibbutz on what will be saved for showing people, because there is a value of holding testimony. On the other hand, the kibbutz wants to rebuild, and I think that's our strength, right? Mm-hmm. To rebuild again and not let this down. There's a factor that some of the kibbutzim are still in the area which is under threat, and some of them are debating internally if they want to go back home, because it's a murder scene for some of their families. They want to take their children home, but their grandparents or parents were killed. So they need to go through their own process. I think it's a process that will take time. Many of these kibbutzim have been relocated for now. They're being adopted on a kibbutz a little farther, so they can be in a driving distance from their regular school. The kids can go back. And there's going to be a period of time of settling and rebuilding the community before they physically move to the site itself. But there's cities that are not kibbutzim. There were like Sderot. There were also evacuating people came back. So I think there's a process of physical building, but there's also a process of community building and resilience that's going to take a long time. I think one of the things we learn when you go down there, this is not an event of, my house was destroyed and we rebuild it and we come back. But it's really a process. And unfortunately, I think this process is going to take a long time. We don't always have the answers for the outcome, but we're in it together. Mm-hmm. I think it's a big message that we need to continue telling, is that we're in this together, and that we know that we will rebuild, because there's no other choice. Mm-hmm. And going there and strengthening those people and telling them, whatever you choose, we will be there for you, goes a long way.
As far as the hostages that are still in captivity, what is the feeling over in Israel now? I mean, how is everybody coping with that?
I think it's a very hard point. Israel has failed on October 7th. Not getting to who, but on different levels, we failed the statement of Israel never again. Every state has to protect their citizens, and we didn't. And it's our moral obligation to bring everybody back. Now that has a lot of implications. It has implications security-wise, military-wise. So whatever their opinion is about a deal or not, I do think that if we continue bringing hostages home that were alive, dead, Israel as a people, our solidarity for one another will be damaged. It's very hard for our society to continue bringing that home. And there are opinions how much the price should be and what will happen. But I think our moral obligation is to bring them home, and to do everything we can do to hold on to our strategic gains of the war as much as we can. But we need to bring them home. And this will not end until each family has their loved ones in any form or shape it will be, unfortunately, and bring them home. And I think it's, no matter what we see today, there's a lot of protests on the streets and people are looking at the polarization around this story. I think what we need to remember is that the debate in Israel, the opinions in Israel are opinions of how do we save more lives. Okay, those who want them home right now want those lives. Those who say a deal will jeopardize more lives want more lives. It's not like they don't want them home. And I think we have to be very careful with our language. But in spite of what we think, we need to continue standing with the families. And that needs to be a statement, right? Standing beside the families, helping the families through this, right? Doing what they think is right in order to bring their loved ones back to Israel. It's our moral obligation. I don't think we will be able to go to another level of rebuilding ourselves until the hostages are all home.
Every last one of them.
Every last one of them.
Mm-hmm. What can we as American Jews do to help Israel know that we are there for Israel and our brothers and sisters?
So I think keeping the sentiment of towards the hostages and towards Israel on the agenda, on the public arena and sphere, in a positive way, and never letting it end. Unfortunately, in Judaism, when somebody passes away, we say Shiva, and people come, and a week later, and then a little bit less, and a little bit less. It's a natural thing. We cannot allow the story to less be on the coverage, okay, to less be there. So I think is a very important thing for the world jury to keep that awareness within leadership, within political leadership, within international, whatever they can, and continue to support. I think storytelling, people think we've had many people telling their stories, documenting their stories. I think it should not end. I think we should not get tired of it. Hearing stories, human stories, the human voice behind, giving the real stories behind the people is very, very, very important. It's very hard to remember 101 stories. We're on 101, right? It's very hard. But we need to strive to remember and tell the stories as much as we can.
Are there any other things that you'd like to tell me about your experiences with the Dallas group or Israel in any area?
So when it comes to missions coming, or the Dallas mission coming, I think the importance is the human interaction. We've spoke about it a lot. Bumping into somebody in the road and asking, "How are you?" You can only do that when you come to Israel. And the language is a question. Hebrews say, "Ma shlomcha," how's your peace? But you're not sure people are at peace. So maybe we have to think, "Echata," how are you? In English, it's the same. But coming to Israel and showing up is a big deal. In Israel, we have a statement saying, getting under the aluka, getting under the stretcher, bearing the burden. When you come to Israel and you volunteer, you make a barbecue, or you pack clothes for people to disengage, they feel that you're bearing the burden with them. It's very hard. They understand that money is being sent, but when you see the human interaction, when you're there with the people, right, it goes such a long way. This is something I've seen. When you go into a wounded soldier at a hospital, you don't always know what he's going through, what the doctor told him, but when you acknowledge him, and then you acknowledge the family, and then you acknowledge the caregivers, it goes such a long way. It's such a privilege. It really, and for me as an Israeli, to accompany it and to see it from the side goes such a long way. And it really starts to allow the people to break down their emotions and start working towards comfort, right? And towards healing. So I really believe, I always was a true believer of Klal Yisrael, of all of Israel together. And I think now, the human interaction exceeds anything you can ever do. I was in a school not long ago here in the U.S., and the kids said they sent notes to Israel, to the Israelis read them. And I laughed. I said, when I was in the army 20 years ago, we ate the chocolate and threw out the notes, right? But I told them I went to a base today in Israel not long ago, and the soldiers were not only reading them, they were actually collecting them. They wanted to have notes from 50 states, right?
So it really makes a difference.
It makes a difference. And I told them not only to write, "Dear soldier, be safe," but to write, "My name is Adam from Dallas. I go to Yavne School. I am praying for you," and even a telephone. Because it really does go a long way. And the soldiers are opening them up, and they feel that, it's a true and trust and worthy fight, and that the Jewish people are behind them. And again, we can have our differences and opinions, but at the end of the day, that you know that you have that person that's praying for you, it goes a long way.
Thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me today. I really enjoyed hearing your stories.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
I wanted to ask one more thing about just with everything that's going on in the United States on college campuses these days. Israel's often part of what they're talking about and fighting for, and I just wanted to get your take on that.
So my take is from an Israeli perspective, right? And also from being in Israel and observing Israel, because I'm trying to bridge it. So I will say the first thing from the Israeli perspective, Israelis are a lot more aware of it today. And with a mission, we saw it. You see a mission, they come and they say to the soldiers, when we made a barbecue or we fed them, they say, "Thank you, you're having a hard time in the army." And they said, "We're having a hard time? Look what's going on in your college campuses." So for me, that statement itself says that the Israelis are more aware of what's going on here. Now, they were always aware, but there's always part of the society, from different places in Israel that are not connected to the world, or they're connected in different places, and all of a sudden, it really came as a shock. So the Israelis are worried for the Americans. They don't maybe they don't know how it's run in the United States or how to deal with it, but the fact that they're worried and they understand what's going on. Another thing that really I think, as an Israeli, it's hard for us to understand is how the slogans that are used on campuses are just words, and there is ignorance of what that means. And if these big name colleges that they've heard of before as an Israeli, and the students can't break down, right, these slogans, they have no idea what they mean, it puts us as the Israelis in a place that we'll never win, because there's no really discussion. It's not a discussion of facts or whatever. Even if we disagree, it's just hatred. So we're really, really, really worried about it. And we're asking ourselves, how can we influence it? And more Israelis are inclined to come out and speak their mind, or even come out and tell their stories in order to try to be heard. I think that's something we need as the Jewish people to build on, right? To build on this passion to educate.
Many of the people are being attacked on the college campuses that are not expressing anything. They're just being attacked because they're Jewish, and I guess we need to all be able to say why we feel the way we do and why Israel is important, and the truth about Israel, and not let all this crazy stuff
Oh, it's
go
definitely frightening. And more Israelis, the older they get, they have more connections to the Jews on our campus. If it's birthrights or if it's other groups where there's an interaction, it's not only on the news for them, it's actually a real connection to somebody that they know that is on these campuses. And when somebody that they know that's on these campuses is expressing, anxiety or even feeling that he or she are jeopardized because they're publicizing their Jewishness, on the Israeli side, they're aware of that and they're worried about that. So we are definitely worried of the rise of anti-Semitism. We realize today that anything that happens in Israel has an effect on world Jewry, and maybe also the opposite and vice versa. So I think that strengthens the solidarity and the idea that we're one people. It doesn't make you feel good on the challenges, right? But it does make us strengthen our relationship and ties, that on this side of the ocean what we do has an effect. I think on the battlefield, Israelis thinks about it also. What I'm going to do, how's that going to affect, somebody on campus, and how is he or she going to deal with it? So I think we need to, strengthen that and really, really give tools to it. And we're inclined more to give tools and to give our side of it.
Well, the world was kind of sympathetic on October 8th, and then it kind of went away. And so I think this is just the aftermath of all of that. But
So my dear friend, and I'll quote my dear friend Micha Goodman, which is a big thinker, he said before Israel even entered the 3 weeks before October 7th, and he said, and before Israel goes into Gaza, boots on the ground, he said, we're into a zero-sum game. And the game was that Israel needs fear from those who did this massacre, but we need the West to love us. And once we go into Gaza, the more we create fear, the more the West will hate us. And the only way for us to really change that is to keep the sentiment or the solidarity of October 8th, where people understood what happened, on the agenda. And we see it happening now. The more we are winning this war, the more we are getting criticized by the world. And the only way really is for people to really understand what happened. And what happened on October 7th, when you go down there, is none less than a magnitude of 9/11, which is the hardest experience the Jews have had since the Shoah. And people need to understand that. It's devastating what happened on the individual level, each person, each woman, each man that were murdered, raped, the massacre, and on a national level. And we need the world to understand that. I don't believe in shock therapy, showing them all of the images. And yet, when I go down there, and I've been down there, also